Welcome, UCL fans, to the fourth and final part of my team analysis review for the United Championship Leagues. This is going to be covering the top four teams as of the end of Week 8 in the UCL as I see it. Now, the official UCL might not have the exact same rankings I have on it. This is an unofficial list, if you will. You go by not just the records that the teams have, but also by the scoring that I do for it. The scoring, of course, a team earns a point every time that they knock out an opponent's Pokemon. They lose a point every time one of their Pokemons gets knocked out. Now, if a Pokemon faints on the opponent's side of the field due to a self-destruct, life orb damage, or recoil, the team does not get a point for it. But the opposing team does still lose a point each week. So, I've already done 3 parts of these. The last part went up, I believe, earlier today. This should hopefully be Friday by the time I upload this. And then we're just going to go ahead and we're going to jump right into this, starting off with the team that we have ranked 4th right now. So as you can see right here, we have the Bronx Bearticks, current record of 6-2, and a score of 9. Team that they have drafted from the original draft. Starting off with the OU tiers, they have Manaphy, the Tornadus Therian, as well as Weavile. From the UU tier, they have the Mega Ampharos, Reuniclus, and Cobalion. From RU, they have Emungus, Assaghor, and Dugtrio. And then finally from the NU tier, Rhydon, Claydol, and Audino. This has been a very unique team. The coach is probably one of the best battlers out there, and I know that most other coaches either go to him for help with building their teams for upcoming opponents, or have just been in super fear of having to go up, well, maybe not super fear, but are always nervous when having to go up against him just because they know of how great of a battler the coach is for this. And as you can see, even though he is 6-2 and has a decent score, he's one of the few coaches that's this high ranked that doesn't have a Mon that has done more than 10 kills throughout this entire season. It's spread out amongst everything. Manaphy with 5 kills, the Tornadus with 6, Weavile with 7, Reuniclus with 8, Amungus with 4, Dugtrio with 3. I mean, there's no one Pokemon that's really outshining the other. If I had to pick a couple, I'd say Reuniclus, because it's 8-2 right now, and the Reuniclus just does not want to die. It comes out and it's there to stay half the time, more than half the time. And after that, of course, there's the Weavile. I mean, it's 7-2 right now out of 6 battles. It's only died a third of the time it's come out. Same with the Reuniclus. It only died 2 times. It's been in 7 battles. He mixes his team up a lot, so there's no good theme that he goes with. I mean, Manaphy, the Tornadus Therian, Reuniclus, Weavile, he brings the most, more than any other Pokemon on his team. But again, he spreads it out. He's a great strategist, I believe, and I'd be shocked. Again, this isn't one of those teams. There's so many teams that could potentially make the playoffs. I can't predict. I'd have to give you a top. If I was to try and make predictions on who could make it, I would need at least, be able to do that for 8 teams, because, there's a good 7-8 teams that could easily make playoffs right now. I mean, we're halfway through the season, and we don't know what's going to happen next. So, and, like I said in the previous video, just about any of the teams from, the last ones up until these top 4 ranked teams right now have a chance for the playoffs. But who's going to make it? Your guess would be as good as mine. Moving on to the 3rd ranked team, we have the Tucson Terrakions, currently with a 7-1 record and have a score of 12. Pokemon that they have drafted, starting with the OU tier, they have Gengar, Gardevoir, which is their Mega, and Chansey. From the UU tier, they have Rotom Heat, Crocodile, and Lucario. From RU, they drafted the Gastrodon, Flygon, and Quillfish. And then from the NU tier, Tangela, Cradily, and Swellow. And of course, Tangela was traded after week 1 for Weezing. If you saw the UCL draft live about 2.5 months ago for it, you know that he was in the ear of one of the players trying to scoop the wheezing out from another coach because he knew that the other coach was going to want it and wouldn't be willing to trade. So he said, if you draft this, I'll draft whatever you want and trade it to you. So he got what he wanted from it. But surprisingly, even though he wanted it, he's only used it one time. In wheezing is a great wall. It only has one weakness, being psychic, but he just hasn't really used it. He got a knockout with him and hasn't died yet. I think he's it's the only Pokemon on his team that hasn't had a death yet. But he also has barely ever brought it as well. And again, this is another one of those teams that, just like the Bronx Bearticks, utilizes every single one of the Mons that they drafted in some way, shape, or form. They're not relying on like one or two Mons to actually get the job done. I mean, you can see Gardevoir, Gengar with 5 kills, Crocodile with 8 kills, Gastrodon with 5, Flygon 3, Lucario 4, Rotom Heat 4. Even the Chansey got one. I think that was just due to Stealth Rock damage from a re-entry, but still got a kill for it. Quillfish, which he was originally talking about trading as well on week 2, but never ended up doing it, ended up keeping it. It's been putting in work for him. It's been in 3 battles, got 2 knockouts with it. So this is, again, a really well-rounded team, and I would want them to see them do more with the wheezing since they, scooped it out from underneath from another team. But, they've done so well. And again, they're utilizing all the Mons that they've drafted. They're not relying on just one or two that you've seen like some of the other ones use, where they have Pokemon that's knocked out, gotten the majority of the score on their team. Not saying that relying on a single Mon is necessarily a bad thing, but you should plan for everything, and I believe these last 2 teams have. But moving on to the second-ranked team. Now, some people will probably think that this should not be ranked second. I only have it ranked this way right now because of the scoring system that I have. This team is easily, if it wasn't second, would easily be third, and the Tucson Terrakions would be second if it weren't for the score. And that team is the Newcastle Nidokings. Record is 6-2, which is a worse record than the Tucson Terrakions, but the score is just that much better in my opinion, because he's been, as you can see, another one has used just about every single Mon at his disposal. The only Mon that he hasn't brought was his Sigilyph. Let's run down the team real quick. He has Mega Venusaur, Slowbro, and Staraptor. The Arcanine Nidoqueen, because he couldn't get the King in time. Haxorus, Scrafty, Sigilyph, and Magneton. And then finally he had the Lilligant, Mismagius, and Armaldo. And the Lilligant he did not use, but he ended up trading it week 4 for Xatu, which helped out a little bit in the one battle it was in. I believe it deflected Stealth Rocks being set up on his side, so is really doing well with that. The Haxorus managed to get majority of its knockouts in only 2 weeks, because it ended up sweeping almost 2 weeks in a row, which was really impressive. I mean, the Haxorus has only been in 4 battles, got 12 knockouts in and has only died 1 time. So it's only died 25% of the time it's been brought to battle. It's got an average of 4 knockouts per match, which, is fairly impressive. But again, he relies not just on Haxorus, because, Haxor's gotten 12 kills. It's only been with him in half the battles. He's brought Slowbro with him every week. Venusaur's been with him most weeks. He's switched out between Staraptor, Arcanine, Nidoqueen. He utilizes a lot of other Mons, and he doesn't rely just on the one. And that's what I think a lot of these other, the lower tier teams, aren't doing, is they're utilizing the best Mons in the best situations. Maybe I'm wrong. They might be, they're planning, but you're trying to prepare for 12 different Pokemon, you're going to make mistakes for it. But the strategy that Newcastle Nidokings has had so far has been working well with them. And this was a team I've heard, before the UCL, I've heard of a majority of all these coaches through different various YouTube sites, or other different various YouTube channels. I've never really subscribed to them before then, but afterwards I've been watching them a lot more and learning more and more about their strategies for it, and it's impressive to see that some of these teams that I was not expecting to go be where they're at are in playoff contention halfway through it. I already had, like, in my mind, it's like, oh, well, I know these teams battle, these people do a lot of Wi-Fi battles. They're probably going to easily be, top teams. But some of these teams that I wasn't expecting are really impressing me. So, and again, in these next 7 weeks, it's going to come down to it. But we still haven't even talked about the number one ranked team right now, and deservingly so, the St. Louis Rampardos. 7-1 with a score of 19. I mean, the Newcastle Neva Kings only had a score of 14. This has 5 more points than the second place team that I have on here. And that's the only reason why I put Newcastle in front of Tucson, because Tucson only had 12 points. If he was to try and catch up to the St. Louis Rampardos, he would either need St. Louis to lose or to try and get like a 6-0 victory just to try and get caught up to the same score. Going into it, the team that he drafted: Mega Metagross, Raikou, and Conkeldurr. He also drafted the Hydreigon, Crobat, and Vaporeon. He's brought Aromatisse, Tangrowth, and Omastar, and then finally in the NU tier, Golurk, Kecleon, and Mesprit. As you can see, with how many times he's brought things to battle, the Mega Metagross, the Raikou, and the Hydreigon have all been used the most, with Mega Metagross and Raikou coming to all 8 of his battles. Hydreigon has been at all but 2 battles. But he's also been using over the last couple weeks, he's been really utilizing the lower mons on his team. He didn't use Omastar for a while. He used Tangrowth the last 2 weeks, I believe. Kecleon he brought 1 week, which was a surprising thing. He used Mesprit at first for the first couple weeks, but wasn't really doing all that much work, so then he stopped using it as much. And again, he's learning, he's a really great Wi-Fi battler, and I expected him to do well in this league, and he has not disappointed yet for it. So, only 1 loss to his record so far, and has a lot of tough opponents still ahead. And like I said, any of these teams have a chance at making the playoffs. Now, if you want me to predict who's going to be in the playoffs, like I said, I can't really say, because the stats are too close to say, oh, well, this team will obviously be in there as well as, this team and that team, and, give you my 4 predictions of who's going to be in it. I have good feelings about, like, the St. Louis Rampardos being in there. I have a good feeling about the Tucson Terrakions. Part of it is their record. They've only lost 1 match each, but at the same time, they've been playing phenomenally well. The Newcastle Nido Kings, like I said, they surprised me so far. I mean, they've had 2 losses, but they've been on a winning streak as of late, it feels like, and I don't foresee them going away anytime soon. The Bronx Bearticks, and the strategy there is just, is better than anyone else. I feel he's probably one of the best strategists in the entire league. Going down the list even more, the Durham Druddigons, they have that bulky stall team that has been working for them. They can, I wouldn't be surprised to see them up in the playoff contention. New York Mankeys, they took out the Bronx Bearticks and the Tucson Terrakions when they were undefeated teams. So they could always make a pull for the playoffs. The Tulsa Talonflames, again, that's another team that started off, I didn't think they were going to do all that well, and then they've just been impressive over the last several weeks. That they started off low and they've moved up in the rankings. Those are those teams right there are some of the biggest, I feel, playoff contenders right now. I would also say, if I had to pick one more, the Pittsburgh Pichus. Their record right now, 4-4 with a score of 4. They have a good chance. It just really all depends on how well the next teams play for them, how the rest of the top tier teams play. Now, there's still 7 more weeks left in it, and I will probably do another one of these closer to actual playoff season for them. But like I said, there's too much. These teams. This league is very close. I mean, there's no one true standoff as far as who's going to clinch a playoff spot first. I mean, this is still St. Louis, even though they're ranked 1 right now, if they were to, again, I don't think this will happen because they're really great at what they've been doing, but if they lose the next 8 weeks, then they will just fall off and then somebody else can. At the same time, if you have the Pittsburgh Pichus 4-4. If they win for the next 7 weeks to make their record become, with only the 4 losses, they're easily going to be in playoff contention. So, playoffs are still 7 weeks away, and we'll do another analysis video upon who the official playoff teams are at that point. I don't know if I will know who will be playing who which weeks of the playoffs, but I will give my assessment of, at that time, who I feel is strong enough to go into a championship game and even take the championship. But that's still 7 weeks away. We're entering into week 9 tomorrow with all the UCL battles, and I will be there watching them with my notebook, taking notes, crunching numbers at the end of it. And on Tuesday, I will have yet another review and ranking video up for you all. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave it a thumbs up rating. Let me know in the comment section below who you believe will be in playoff contention in 7 weeks, or who you're rooting for this season in general. But thank you all very much for watching this. And like I said, I will see you all on Tuesday with another review and rankings video. Until then, take care.